Love that song, Joe. I'm saying yes. So I have the incredible pleasure and privilege to introduce our guest speaker this morning. And after our practitioner meeting later today, when we vet her, she will most likely become our new official new staff minister here at the Center for Spiritual Living Castle Rock. And the reason why I say that is I had the pleasure of paneling Reverend Bobbi 2 years ago. And she has been licensed as a Center for Spiritual Living licensed minister for 2 years, and I have been her mentor for that amount of time. And Reverend Bobbi lives in California with her family. And she will most likely tell you about her amazing ministries that she does there, and you will get to experience on your own her power and her light and her clarity. And I just want you to know that there are situations that come up, and I think it's most hilarious that I have walked this path myself, and that's probably why we were attracted to each other. As you recall, there were a couple of years where I served in Philadelphia and then moved out to Denver, and I was still on staff in the Philly church. And so I served the Philly church and Dr. Bob by telecommuting. And I actually did a lot for the center, but didn't have to physically be there. And that's how Reverend Bobbi is joining us, and she'll be telecommuting as our staff minister. And when I explained that we have shared leadership here within this community and that the practitioner team would have to vet her and decide whether she was, whether we would open her up, open arms, welcome her to join our practitioner team, she said, well, I'll book a flight. When's your next practitioner meeting? I'll be there. So she's here, and I thought it only appropriate for her to also speak, because she's here this weekend with us. And I will like to say that there are very few people on this planet that I have had the pleasure to meet and work with that is so incredibly aware, self-aware, willing to do her work, willing to do her process, and to show up and shine the light and be the power that she is. So please join me in welcoming this beautiful soul, Reverend Bobbi Becker.
That was awesome. Good morning, Castle Rock. Good morning. How are you? Fantastic. Oh, I love that guy in the back. I had a conversation with you. He's the one you want to hang out at a party with, right? Yeah. He is the party. Yeah. I know a few of you, and I usually hang out with you, so I love that. It's really great to be here. I must say that every time I think I have life figured out, it turns. We were having this conversation yesterday, Reverend Julie and I and her husband Tony, about the fact that, progress, evolution, and life, it's not a straight path. It is not linear. It has so many turns and twists in it that sometimes I just get dizzy with it. But I've come to understand most of the time that dizziness is my excitement and not necessarily panic. Because I know in my past, a lot of times panic was oftentimes sort of the skill that I used to deal with things. And I'm grateful that I don't necessarily have to go there so much anymore. My talk today is about how our lives reflect our creativity. Before I get into that, I need to say something so I don't forget this. I want to thank the community for being so welcoming. I want to thank Reverend Julie and Tony for treating me to Colorado hospitality by fly fishing yesterday. Hello. My life is truly my own creative adventure, and I truly have a say in what happens in my life a lot. And so yesterday it was just a joy, and I thank you. I enjoyed having dinner with Dr. Reverend Yvonne and Jeff, her beloved, and it was really a pleasure to get to know the two of you, so thank you for that. I really have a strong inclination, a strong pull to this idea of creativity. I believe, and it's so part of science of mind, that we create our lives. I've truly created my life. And it's a life that I must say, I am absolutely, truly blessed, beyond a doubt. I want to start with just an experience, though, that I had that reminded me how powerful it is, how much I know and think and resonate and feel into that creativity. I have a beautiful wife. We've been together 9 years, married 3.5. I can never figure that out. I'm one of those who dates are just not always my best. And we have a 12-year-old daughter. And they are cray-cray. Do you know that word? They're awesome. They are adventurous. They'll jump out of a plane even if it wasn't planned. And I say that, I'm embellishing a little bit, but I kind of think they would. And oftentimes when we're playing or we're out there doing things, somebody gets hurt, it's usually me, because I usually, sometimes, especially when we're doing these adventures, sometimes a little fear comes in for me, and usually when that fear comes in, I usually get a little injured. But I love them because they have removed, because they're constantly testing me, they have removed a lot of fear out of my life around a lot of things that I wasn't even aware of. Here's a great example. We camp. We love to camp. Camping is like what we do, but let me qualify what camping is. We glamp. We don't necessarily camp. We glamp. So we got our first trailer about 4 years ago, and Janine, my wife, she is a retired firefighter, so she'll drive anything huge, and I mean anything. And she'll drive it down a windy road, much to the energy that builds up in my stomach around that. But she's amazing. So we go and we get this trailer, and I had to go pick it up with my dad. Fortunately, he went with me, and he loves to pull big things. So he helped me get it home, and we had to have some work done on it. And Janine works, and so I'm retired, at least from one career, and I had to take the trailer to a repair place. And I was a little nervous about it because I don't really tow. The only thing I tow is my family in tow, you know, that kind of in tow. But I don't tow. So, it was our first time to hook the trailer up to the truck by ourselves. We had never done that before, but we had enough knowledge to be dangerous. So we're at our storage, and we're hooking the trailer up together, and we're checking to make sure that it's not going to fall off the truck after I drive away. And we start to pull out. I pull out. Janine goes to work. I'm sweating like some kind of farm animal. And I am just thinking that I'm going to take out every stoplight, hit every curb, and probably take out a few cars on the way. And it's not even that far away. And I'm getting and it's just the fear's building up, and I'm getting really, really nervous. And I've sweat through my clothes and probably have ruined the truck seat, but that's okay. So I'm driving there, and I'm just like this, you know, and I'm nervous, and I'm going, you got to breathe, because I realize I'm not breathing. I'm probably blue. And so I look in the rearview mirror, and I start to breathe, and I'm breathing, okay, and I pull into the repair place. I've made it. I haven't destroyed anything. So I go into the office, and I tell the guy that the trailer's out there. He goes, great, what do you want done? We talked about it. He goes, great, just go unhook the trailer from the truck and meet me back in here. You're not going to help me? And he goes, oh, no, you'll be fine, I'm sure. And I go, here's key. One, I didn't ask for help. I should have, but I didn't. And I say I should have because I really didn't have to do it all on my own. But I got to do it on my own. So I go out there and I start to unhook the trailer. This is what I started to notice. In that panic and in that fear, I can't see. I'm unable to see the pieces that I've unhooked. In fact, I'm not sure I've unhooked everything. I think I've unhooked everything to pull the trailer away, but I'm not sure. So I get into the truck once I've unhooked everything, and I pull forward 6 inches just so I don't drag the trailer too far. And I come back, and you know, here's the trailer and here's the truck, and I'm feeling, because I realize I can't see. I cannot see what I've done. I'm in such fear that I cannot see. I'm conscious of this. I'm a religious scientist. I realize that right in this moment that this fear has completely paralyzed one of my senses. So I get in the truck and I pull forward another 6 inches. Now I walk between the truck and the trailer. And I shuffle. because I want to make sure there's nothing laying on the ground. But just in case, I pull forward another 6 inches, I get out of the truck, and I take my hands and I do this, and I walk in between, and I'm doing this little dance, and I know they're all watching me from that office. And they think I'm doing some kind of, I don't know, exotic ritual to turn the trailer over to them. I go inside, and the guy says to me, he goes, "Are you all right?" I said, "Yeah, I'm okay." I tell that story because, I created that whole experience. And it was all my choice, and it was all based on whether I believed I was enough in the moment, that I was capable, and also, did I have everything I needed for that moment to be absolutely perfect in it? Understand that this idea of creation is also a practice. I'm continually practicing me. And as I practice me, more of me shows up. That real me becomes revealed. And it happens all the time. Now, I'll say this, and I love this. This is a Jim Carrey quote. He says, the trouble with real life is there's no danger music. Wouldn't it be awesome if every time I was about to make a choice, boom, 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 That was really dangerous. Not like when you're unhooking your trailer when the boom, boom, boom's happening and it's not necessarily dangerous. So I don't have a soundtrack always to my life except my thoughts. There's my soundtrack, right? The truth about creation is it's happening all the time. Every idea we have is creative. There isn't anything that happens in my life that I haven't participated in some way, shape, or form through an idea that I've had. And the beautiful part is I get to do it with you. And you get to participate in that. And we co-create together in a bigger experience of what that creation is. And I think what's really interesting about creation, about the creative process, is sometimes we think creation happens outside of us. Well, if only they would behave a particular way, then my life would be okay. If only folks met my expectations, or if only I knew more, or if only I was better at this, or if only. And we oftentimes, including myself, we wait for that if only, forgetting that we're creating at that moment too. We're creating in that if only place of life. So when I'm creating, I kind of look at it, there's 3 things I'm typically doing. I'm resisting something if I'm in fear. So I'm resisting because I'm afraid something's going to happen. My worst fear, the other shoe drops, whatever that might be. I'm in a habit of thinking. In that habit of thinking, I'm creating the very thing I don't want to create because I'm habitually thinking the same thing and in the same way. There's another option. And that's I can surrender to the flow of life. Surrender to that flow that's me. Knowing that my path is so beautifully unique, that I have this divine purpose on this planet, and as I surrender into that divine flow, that I become an integral part of this evolving planet. That no matter what's happening around me, as long as I don't perceive or characterize it as being something that shouldn't be happening, I can actually participate in what should be happening. So that revelation happens specifically not only for me, but for everyone around me, because light is shown on that darkness that's my thinking. So when I'm resisting, am I doing that? Am I placing expectations on others? Am I worried about tomorrow? And then, like I said earlier, do I allow life to unfold in the highest and best through faith? Rainer Maria Rilke says in Letters to a Young Poet, he talks a lot about the fact that life is choices all the time, and we don't always know the outcome. And if we did know the outcome, then we probably would choose anyway that very outcome. He also says this, that if our life seems poor, do not blame it, blame yourself. Now I'm going to tweak that a little bit and take responsibility yourself. He says, be poet enough to call forth its riches. We are all poets of our own lives. We often think that creativity is something that happens for beautiful Joe here, who, my goodness, that song was awesome. how beautiful he sings, and the writing that you do is just amazing, and it inspired me, and I sat there with God bumps, just on God bumps. I still have a couple layers left because of it. And we think creativity is just that, but creativity is everything. So knowing that all is creative, when I'm describing my life and who I am as creative, is it happening to me or as me? So when I'm thinking about creating my life, am I the victim of life, or is life happening as me? And I think that's very important to note, because I was thinking about this in abundance the other day, and I was thinking, one of the things I did about 10 years ago, actually 14 years ago, is I decided I was going to retire at the age of 50. I had no idea how that was going to happen. I know I saved, but I didn't know if I had saved enough. But something was telling me that I was going to retire early because there was something different for me to do. And I held in that faith that this idea wasn't just an idea that came to me because I hated my job, because that was not the case. I just knew that I wanted to do something more, and I thought 50 was kind of, just kind of came to my head, and I thought, well, I'll retire at 50. And then I spent the next 10 years surrendering to what the how might be, and it was amazing what showed up. The right people showed up, the right circumstances showed up, the right information showed up. Everything showed up to the point that it kind of scared me a little. And the fear was sort of what Marianne Williamson said, I was afraid of my own light, not the dark. I was thinking, am I really this creative? Can I really do this for myself? And the answer is yes, I can. Yes, I can. And when I turned 50, I said goodbye, and I retired. And the amazing part about this is I don't have to work again. So there's nothing there. I get to do what I love to do and spend time with my family in a way that is truly around sort of my divine purpose. And I'm so grateful for that. When people, it's funny, people ask me, so how's retirement? And I said, retirement is as good as I want it to be. And it's amazing. It's amazing that I get to be and understand and know this about what life is. Joe, would you throw up one of the slides for me? Just anyone. That's the one. God moves upon God. This is the starting point of creation, and every time one conceives of an idea, it is God expressing itself. Every idea that comes to us, and I was kind of thinking that Reverend Julie and I have this great relationship. I'm so grateful. When I met her on my panels, there was just something about her that spoke to me. And right after panels was done, I thought, she's going to be my mentor. I don't know what it is about her. She was emotional, and her heart was all over the place, and I just thought, my gosh, that's so not me. I need some of that. And it touched me so deeply, and I remember calling her, and we're talking about being a mentor. But what's really interesting is, just recently, a really great something happened where she was talking to me about my potential role here, and she was asking me about an idea, and I explained to her this idea I had, but it was something she had been thinking about. Almost, not down to the detail, but pretty darn close. And we came up with this idea for the community around prayer, and it was such a beautiful synchronicity, synergy. And it made me think about how beautiful life is, that everything is all out there for us, and that we don't have to figure it out ourselves. We don't have to think that creativity is just something that happens within me, and my brain has to think about all of it and come up with the answers. I only have to surrender to that divine creative force that is me, that I'm part of, and that everything out there is already out there for all of us to enjoy and surrender into, to have that joy that in parts of our lives that we may not be experiencing what we want. So We can't escape from this creative power of our thought. There is no use in trying to do so. All we need to do is use the law from the right motive. Then we shall be made free. That's Ernest Holmes in Science of Mind. All we need to do is use the law from the right motive, then we shall be made free. It is entirely up to us how that expresses itself. There is nothing that we have to do. It's not like we have to pull all the right ingredients in together. It's not like I have to understand this or understand this. Yes, it is a gradual understanding, but it's already present as us in our lives. And each person that we come in contact with, as we see them as the same, part of that same creative force of love, we've just exponentially opened ourselves, not to really more love, but to the awareness of more love. Because it is always present, and it is always present as everything. So often in my life, when I've tried to figure something out, when I turn to the logic that's my brain, and I actually really appreciate that logical brain I have. It has served me in so many beautiful ways. But it's still limited. It's limited in its expression if I think that it's only that brain that's doing it. So in essence, what I'm doing is I'm reducing the creative power that's already present. I'm putting a tourniquet on it. And tourniquets have their place, but not in my creativity. So the question is, where in my life am I seeing life not as I want it, and where am I seeing life as good? And the more that I see my life as being good, the more that I will see my life as I want it, because it's all perception. I was thinking about financial abundance the other day, and I was thinking about, my family's doing really, really well, and we just really can do anything we want to do. And part of that reason is because we flipped this thinking from not do I have enough money, but do I see that my life is so abundant that I always have enough to do what I want to do, or to do what it's pulling us. I don't want to do everything, even though sometimes my family exhausts me with the everything. And it's so funny, my wife and daughter, Reese is 12, they want to do everything, and I applaud that, and that's who they are. And what's really beautiful about that is they inspire me to understand is I also can choose. I could choose to, get on the couch with the dogs and while they go out and climb the mountain and then maybe go ride a bike and then maybe go swim in the ocean. Every day is the Olympics at my house. So it's beautiful. That is mirrored back to me as life can be anything we want. So, how can I be conscious about my creation? How can I be more conscious in it? I have a few ideas for that I'd like to share with you. The first one that I know that is absolutely so critical in my path to see who I am as a creative being is, do I forgive myself and others? Forgiveness is the absolute most powerful work that I can do in my life. Number one, because it makes room. It makes room in my life for the things that I want to be and do. Because if I am full of regret, anger, frustration at things, then there is no room for what I want. Do I look at how I see things as well as what I see? And I say that because what I see is key to how I see it. So if I see the world as a dangerous place, I need to look at how I'm seeing the world. If I look at my life as being limited, that I don't have enough, then then I'm not enough. So it's so important to look at those, I call them mile markers on the way, those little signs that tell me where I'm at. Sometimes, and I'm not saying this about this community, but sometimes in community, what we tend to do is we go from well, this is not happening very well in my life, to bypass and just affirming. We also need to look at the middle. We also need to speak our truth and look at what's really happening in our life. so that we can understand and not repeat things that we don't want to happen. Repeat the way in which we look at life and do life. The last thing is, do I trust that the universe conspires for my success? Do I really do that? Do I think that even in this, like, I'm in this pause kind of in my life right now. It's a really great pause the more I think about it. In this pause, do I think that at any moment that I'm being left dangled with alone? Do I think that I'm doing this by myself? Do I think that not every moment that the divine conspires for me and my best? Just looking at the time. Creativity is happening all the time, and in that sense, there's a really great story that is told by Elizabeth Gilbert in her book, Big Magic. Have any of you read that book? Speaks to me. It's about creativity. It's only about creativity. And there's a story in this book that I think is so interesting, and she talks about this poet. And I cannot remember the poet's name. It's this famous poet, and she talks about her creative process, and she says that this is how it works. She says as a child, when this creativity around poetry first came upon her, she said what happened is she was in a field, and she heard this poem coming over this hill and down into this meadow where she was. And she ran, because she was running to get a piece of paper and a pen, and she was running as fast as she could to the house. And this poem was just coming, and she could see it. And she gets to the house, and this happened each and every time a poem came, if she caught the poem, she was able to write the poem down word for word as it would pass through her. If it passed through her and she just missed it, sometimes she would be able to grab the tail of the poem and pull it back and write it word for word backwards. And then sometimes that poem would go through her, but she wasn't fast enough, so it would move on to some other artist. Do you hear that? To some other artist. Creativity is not something that we own as, well, am I creative enough? Creativity, or in essence, even genius, is something that's quite new, when it's the idea of even genius being relevant or relative to just the individual. Pre-Renaissance, genius was something that was the universe. And genius spoke to different individuals, and genius would hang out. And they were these little, I'll call them angels, but they call them daemons, but these little angels that would hang out and whisper in the ear of somebody who would take that idea. So genius was never, in essence, something that someone was either genius or not. It was everybody's gift. And then post-Renaissance, genius became the person. And then the pressure became on us to be creative up here, not that we were part of something bigger than ourselves. So we evolved into this very individualistic society where what's really wonderful about Science of Mind is if you know that, we are part of something big, and we are an individualized expression. We are not so individual or separate that we are separate from creation. And the things that I've just talked to you about, it's all about being in that flow. So as any stereotypical Californian, I surf. Not every Californian surfs, but I do surf. And I actually didn't learn how to surf until I was 35. And once I learned to surf, I was terrified of the water. I mean, absolutely terrified of the water, the ocean. And I thought, I got to get over this, so I'm going to learn to surf. So I did. So I took lessons, and I decided to take lessons, and I was living up in Ventura County at the time, and the surfing's awesome up there, and I learned to surf in winter, which is when the surf is the biggest in Ventura. I'm thinking, geez, had I known this, but hey. And there were many days when I was trying to surf in the most ridiculous kind of waves, but I was out there, and I was getting pummeled, but for some reason in that experience, it reduced my fear, because I kept getting out there and facing that fear. And my instructor told me something that was really interesting. When you first learn to surf, and this is 20 years ago, you first learn to stand up on the board. It's the first thing you do. So you really don't catch a wave. You get out there in the white water and you just learn to balance on the board and you keep figuring that out. I see this guy nodding over here, so I'm thinking he surfs. Yeah, you know a surfer because they're like, oh yeah, yeah. So you learn to surf on the white water so you can stand up. And then at some point you get taken out beyond the wave. Because true surfing is when you catch an unformed wave. That's surfing. And catching an unformed wave, there is no other experience I've ever had than catching an unformed wave. The trick to it is this. You paddle out beyond the waves and you're out there hanging out with a bunch of people, hoping that, the next wave's yours. And you see the wave coming and you turn your board, and depending on the type of wave, but most of the time you turn your board so that it is adjacent to the wave. Here's the wave, here's your board. You paddle and you get your speed up to the same speed of the wave. So in the beginning, man, you're paddling like a freak. And you look like one too. I mean, you're paddling and you're using energy that you don't really need to use, but you don't know, so you do it. But once you start to learn, you're paddling and you're in grace. You're just in it. And you're using energy very efficiently. The wave starts to rise behind you. And if you've caught the wave, you feel the back of your board pick up. And here's the pretty part. You lean. You lean into that wave. And it picks you up. And if you're in the right spot, you don't even have to paddle. You just lean. And the wave picks you up, and you're in it. And then you stand, and then you get to do all that you do. Now, if the wave doesn't pick you up, usually it's because you've not committed to it. You've picked up, so you come right out of the wave. The beautiful part about surfing, it is about the flow of life and creativity. Because when you lean in that wave, and it catches you, and it pulls you, you don't look back. You don't look back to see what other waves back there. You're right in it. Sometimes I choose not to catch that wave, and I pick up, and I wait for the next one. There's always a wave. That is creativity. That is being in the flow of life, and that is that perfect expression of what it feels like to be in the flow of creativity. We lean into it. We commit to our experience of it. And we let go of the fear of what if. Thank you for letting me share this today. I'd like to pray at the end of my talk, if you'll just join me. So take that deep breath and let's lean into it. So I just stand in this beautiful community of Castle Rock, knowing that there is God and there is nothing else. And I lean into that knowing, opening up to that divine intelligence that is all present, all things, everywhere. I unify with that, knowing that it is not just me, but everyone in this room that is one with that creative intelligence. And I just affirm for myself and others that as we allow the creative nature of who we are to be that guide, to be that lead, to be that place that we always stand upon, allowing and affirming the truth of who we are creative beings every moment. That we create our life, and we create it and all its outcomes. We forgive ourselves for the past and anything that we may not have cared for. We forgive others, and we forgive all of this because we know that it stands in our way of knowing and really experiencing our divine nature. I just express this. I bless this community, knowing that it is such a joy to be part of this like-minded community, knowing that we are all one. So in that, I just say, thank you, God. Thank you. And I just release this word, knowing that it is already done in the mind. And so it is. Amen. Thank you.